Hello geographers. What I'm going to do is to explain to you your Geography Life Skills task. This is task 1 of the Year 10 Geography course. I'm hoping that you have a lot of fun with this particular task, and I'd like to explain it to you now. First of all, we can see on the screen that we have some ideas as to when this is actually due. It's not due on the 6th of April, and it's a hand-in task using the scaffold provided. And you will actually have 2 lessons of class time to actually do the task. The next thing on our screen, as you can see, is that we're going to look at the outline of the task. And basically this gives you a snapshot as to what will be involved in the task. So you have to pretend that you're a town planner. A town planner is somebody that plans what a town or a village might look like. What sort of buildings will it have? Where will the buildings be? Where will the parks be? Where will the industrial parts be? Where are we going to put the garbage tip, the waste facility? Where are we going to put the schools, etc.? So you have to pretend that you're a town planner and you're planning a village. And this village has to be sustainable. And that means that we want to try to make this village as environmentally friendly as possible. And we want to make sure that it has good community atmosphere, that people will really enjoy living in this particular village. And guess what? You even get to name your village. You can have whatever name you wish. So to get started, let's read the scenario, and then you can actually start planning your village. Before we get to the scenario, we can see that there are 5 activities, which I'll explain in a second. So the scenario sets up what you have to actually do in this assignment. So the government wants you to create an urban village because the government doesn't want any more urban sprawl. Urban sprawl's created when there is suburb after suburb after suburb. So we want to have an urban village instead. So the nearby city is called Rigagata, and it's located 50 kilometres to the northeast of your proposed village. The imaginary city, Rigagata, is growing so big so rapidly, and to avoid urban sprawl, the government wants you to plan an urban village. Rigagata is accessible to your village along the railway line and the major road, which I'll show you in a minute. The village has to be self-sufficient in power generation and provide a community atmosphere for residents. And it is hoped that your village will be a model that the government could promote in other areas of Australia. So what do you have to do? You have to name your village, and you have to use figure 1 to assist you in looking at what sort of landscape you're going to have to work with. Is it hilly? Is it flat? Is it a valley? Does it have a river going through it? Are there major roads? You have to read some information and do a definition. In number 3, you have to develop a written plan for your village using the scaffold. And in number 4, you've got to look at the contour map, which is figure 1, and figure 3, which is a map of using a key. And you have to do some activities A to H under that heading in the scaffold. And then number 5, you're going to do a streetscape. And to do a streetscape, you've got to look at figure 2, because that will help you. All right, let's have a look at the scaffold. And when you have a look at the scaffold, you can see that the first thing that you have to do is put My Urban Village by, and you put your name and your class in that particular section in the space provided. So you have to look at, in number 1, you have to actually name what your village is going to be called. So you can choose whatever you like. You can make up a name and have that as your village. Then you've got to say why you chose that name for your village. And as you can see on scaffold 1, there's a box there for a picture. And what you've got to do is you've got to go on the internet and have a look at some examples of urban villages. and you've got to copy and paste into the scaffold a picture of what an urban village looks like. And then at the bottom of that page where question 1 is, it says my image of an example of an urban village is called. And if you tell us whereabouts in the world that village is that you actually copied and pasted into your scaffold. Here is figure 1, which is a contour map, and figure 1 tells you that this area is a valley, and we can see that it's a valley because those contour lines with the numbers on them, they actually are telling you, just here, these lines here, they're actually telling you about what the shape of the land is. So when it's got on it 50, 100, 110, that's metres above sea level. So that's what we mean by that. And we can also see on this, this proposed area that there's a creek and that's running into the river. We can also see that there is a railway line and a main road, and we know that because of the key on our map, and the key on our map tells us what all those things are. So this is where you need to actually have your village located, in this area, which is the dotted line just here. So this is the area. It's not quite like that, is it? It goes like that. So this is the line here. This is the area that your village needs to be located in here. Okay, so that should be good fun to actually to do that. And let's go on. So this is the information that you will need to answer question 2. And in question 2, it's pretty easy. You'll just have to look at to read the information, and you can see that just here is the information that you need to answer the questions that go with number 2. So you'll be answering questions like, an urban village is a planned area that has special characteristics. List 4 of these from the list. And the list is just there where I pointed out to you. Explain what 2 of these mean in your own words. And then C says, discuss briefly the advantages of living in an urban village compared to living in a suburb of a big city. So you've got to think about the transport, how much houses cost, what the population's like, and the access to community services that people have, like schools, for example. All right, let's go on. Number 3, you have to develop a written plan for your village, and you're going to set it out in the spaces here. So A, what industries in the village make your town environmentally friendly? So, for example, is there an area where there are wind farms near your village, and the wind farms generate electricity? So does your village use the electricity from the wind farms? And B, what would you do in your village to encourage people to recycle? So you know that in your neighbourhood you recycle, your council helps you do that. So if you were in charge of this village, what would you get people to do to actually recycle their rubbish instead of throwing it all into landfill? And C, if you have a look on the scaffold, says what features of your village would attract people to live in this area? Name 2 of them. And what could you do to make the houses warmer in winter and cooler in summer? So you'll need to think about that and think about how you could actually do that. Okay, if we go, we can see that we've got a village design, and you have to use figure 1 and figure 3 to help you here. And you have to say where you're going to actually put the major roads, and you can see on the scaffold that there's a place where you can do this. Where you would locate your village, CBD, so the most important part of your village, where you would actually do that. So here's figure 3 for us, so that you can have a look at how to do a key. And here is our streetscape question, where you have to look at the streetscape, which is here. And in the space provided, you have to pretend that you're drawing part of your village. It might be the main street of your village. And you're actually going to put in what you would put in that village. Would you put in trees along the road? Would you put in a park somewhere in your street? How would you make the village sustainable in terms of rubbish? How would you collect rubbish on your main street? And that should be some fun, using the guide and getting that done. So basically, it's going to be a really good fun assignment where you've got to come up with a design for a village. And the most important thing is to have fun, to follow the instructions, to use the scaffold. If you don't want to use the scaffold and write into the scaffold, you can download it, and then you can use like the electronic copy, and you could write and draw onto the electronic copy and then print it off for your teacher. And it's due on April 6th. So have fun and enjoy the task.